wage structures were set in clubs where young players would earn a certain amount.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to play 100 Premier League games before you went to that next level. And then the senior boys were the ones that were paid the most. So now it's different because, and yeah, on deadline day, United weren't prepared to do any business with Everton. So I got a barrage of abuse from Roy. And with about half an hour to go, I ended up signing a deal to go to Aston Villa on loan and saw him the next morning, or maybe a couple of days later. Sir Alex had this thing where he'd sometimes walk out to training 20 minutes into the session, and you'd always catch him out the corner of your eye. Right, the boss is coming over, levels go up, nerves go up.
What is a winner's mindset? If you had to kind of say your version of it.
I'd say firstly hard work. I think that dedication and routine are massive. I can't value the importance of stuff like timekeeping and things like that more. All the best professionals. And then the one thing that I struggled with being at the top was the longevity aspect. It wasn't because of lack of desire, but there's always things that can affect your performance, like media attention and
social media now.
Yeah, dealing with pressures and yeah. So it's a mixture of all those things that create a real winning mindset, and with it being a team sport. It's not just individual mindset. I think you can create a culture in your team where you have got a winning mentality, and that's very important. It's not easy to do, but if you've got 8-9 individuals that you can sort of spreads like wildfire, which is important in a football team.
Yeah, with routine, with timekeeping, are these things that you've learned from like Man United days, from when you were younger, and you've kind of learned from these like idol players, these huge players that you played with there?
Definitely. I mean, I think first of all, it helps the way you're brought up with your parents, your school teachers, and whatever. But yeah, I think I can't value enough the senior players I had growing up with Giggs, Scott, Ferdinand, Rooney, Patrice Evra, people like this, strong characters that at the time as a young player you maybe thought, oh, he's on my case, or why they have it creating so much importance around this, but it stands the test of time. If you do the same things to a very high level over and over again, no complacency even when you're at the top. Yeah, these are things that I like to set examples myself. I think society nowadays is a bit different, and younger players find it hard to put as much value on these things, which you can't blame them. It's the way society is. But I think to create top athletes and top teams, you have to have these values.
When you were at Man U, talk to me about, as you were a really young player, and how intense was the kind of environment then with like Rio, with Ferguson there watching over you, and how hard it is that with you then as a young player?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember being nervous for just training sessions when I first went into the first team.
Yeah.
And yeah, not sleepless nights, but you'd be an hour before training, you'd be sort of nervous. And so Alex had this thing where he'd sometimes walk out to training 20 minutes into the session, and you'd always catch him out the corner of your eye. Right, the boss is coming over, levels go up, nerves go up. So yeah, it's really, really intense, and sometimes that intensity cannot be enjoyable. But looking back, you realise that sort of nervous edge and that intensity, it made performance go up. It made concentration go up. And ultimately, it helped the team win. So yeah, it was a great environment to be part of, and I'm massively grateful.
Yeah, because do you think that's hard to find now, that really kind of intensity, that really kind of environment that you found there? with Ferguson, with all kind of the higher players, like as you mentioned. And do you think that's like hard to find out with young players now, as you mentioned, that kind of intensity, that kind of knowing the hard work, as you mentioned, the timekeeping, the routine. And why do you think that's changed from then when you were playing to now?
Um, yeah, I think it's like it's not just within football; it's society as a whole. I think the sort of respect to your elders is diluting, and yeah, like the core values of being a human being are maybe getting a bit sloppy, and people put um, sort of social media prioritize different things now. But I think for me, even still, that the players that you'll see at the top that have the longest careers, I look at people like Saka and Foden, and they look massively focused people. And
Mm.
um, yeah, it's just no surprise that they will be at the top. You might have people who have 2 3 year spells who have this big media wave, but the ones that have 10 15 year careers at the top will always have this dedication and routine as part of their game. And I think that'll stand the test of time through many a generation.
Yeah, because I feel like it's hard now. Not really hard, but for young players now, if you rise on kind of the shine and you kind of like you got all this kind of media attention around you, you know, obviously clubs gonna pay you higher wages, and the media attention, social media, the pressure from fans, etc., etc. I think if you compare it now to being a young player coming through the ranks at Man U, compared to how many years ago. I think the actual pressure around the expectation is a lot higher now. I think. Do you think social media in particular has played a massive mental impact on maybe young players?
Definitely, yeah. I think that's where you've got to sort of empathise with the current crop a little bit. Is that every mistake is scrutinised? It goes worldwide on social media, um, and yeah, that can be quite a toxic place sometimes. So um, it is difficult, but on the flip side to that is 10 15 years ago, young players were earning the money that they are now. So
Mm.
uh, they are, although I see social media craze as a bit of a negative as a young footballer. Yeah, the top players are getting paid ridiculous money, whereas back 10 15 years ago, the wage structures were set in clubs where young players would earn a certain amount.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to play 100 Premier League games before you went to that next level. And then the senior boys were the ones that were paid the most. So now it's different because the young players are the biggest assets at the football club. They're the ones that are valued the most. And yeah, I think sometimes they know that.
Because I even see now, and I think from an outsider, I think like especially when a young player is that highly kind of valued by a club, they would chuck maybe £100,000 a week to that player, and it's just mad. I think if you compare it from now to then, and obviously all these media attentions play a big part in it. I just wanted to ask you about your England time. I heard a story about you once, um, about kind of a pension that got out, about how they could kind of prevent you from playing with England. And when I hear stories like this, I think, how would that have an impact in your mental health at that time? And I wanted to know during that time, did you have to see anybody to help you? Because, you know, mental health wasn't really spoken as much then as it is now. Um, and people don't see that side of kind of a player.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it was a petition that you're talking about at the time, and yeah, that's really difficult. I think I said it in an interview about Maguire 2 3 months ago. You can sort of lose track with what's going on in your life when there's a bit of a media storm against you, and you can start to feel like a bit of a failure. But when you strip it back, I was just a lad from a small town like Bradford, working class family, and you playing for Man United in England. In Harry Maguire's case, captain in Man United. So you should never forget that you've made huge strides. Although at that one time you're probably playing below par, and yeah, and then if you're not flavour of the month, then that creates a bit of a media and fan wave against you, which is massively difficult. They're not opposition fans who are against you. It's your own people and your own fans. And at United, it was a club that I'd been at since I was 12, so it's massively difficult. Living in Manchester as well, you didn't want to go out in the streets, and it was where mental health wasn't such an awareness at the time. So yeah, it was quite hard finding coping mechanisms with that. But I'm a bit old school. I think times like that do make you tougher for the future. There's plenty of obstacles I've had to overcome since, and I think that time period did probably make me more resilient. So, but I think an important thing is for players currently is to just remember where you've come from. Remember all the obstacles you've had to get to this point. A lot of these lads are from working class families, they're from small towns, and they're playing for the biggest clubs in world football and for the country. So never forget that.
But do you think fans and also the media don't really see because we see the player and that's it for 90 minutes, and we don't see really the person, we didn't see the family, we didn't see what happens kind of behind the scenes, and we kind of head to the impact of he's not playing well, he's not trying, he's not doing this and that, and we never really step back and think, okay, why is he not playing well? Is there maybe something playing on his mind? Do you think why do you think that is? Do you think that needs to change kind of the perspective of kind of from us fans to you to see more as kind of a as kind of a 90-minute player and more kind of as like a person?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're becoming more aware of the mental side. You see Jesse Lingard like that doing documentaries on things like this, but ultimately the media are going to put out what sells papers, what gets clicks on YouTube, whether it's good analysis or not. The media are going to get what gets them the most coverage. If that and I think that isn't, oh, let's dig deeper into what's going on in his life. I think that is, let's hang this guy out to dry, and ultimately that's what gets the numbers. And so
Yeah,
if it's not what the media will try and please. So
yeah,
I think for me the best coverage of the week is Monday night, an hour before Monday Night Football with Carragher and Neville. Is just football analysis. It's top viewing. It's great media, and that's my favourite coverage of the media coverage of the week. The rest is basically just trying to get as many clicks or sell as many papers as possible, and that's where the truths are sort of twisted.
would you say that you're really affected by the media, not you I mean kind of particular, but I mean as like a player kind of voice? Do you think really players do not really like the media, especially the top Premier League players? I think kind of the Harry Maguires, these type of players, they're really not like the media at all.
Um, yeah, I'm sure it's a distraction. I mean, some players can cope with it really well. I wish at the time I should have just got back to basics more, sort of, yeah, sort of just stuck to my guns and concentrated a bit more about football. But listen, as footballers, we can't complain too much. It's media and sponsors that create the money around football. So
Yeah,
we can't have it good on both sides. I just think, yeah, sometimes the truth gets bent so much that it is frustrating as players.
yeah.
And and I don't think that'll ever change. It's sort of the love-hate relationship between the players and the media, and that's just how it is.
For you, what's the difference between your England team and this England team now? What's the biggest difference, do you think?
Um, I think it looks more like a club feel around the current squad. Um, not too many egos, and I'm not
Yeah,
saying there was crazy amounts when I was there, but there was big players who were all sort of
playing for
star
Chelsea. Yeah,
star
Man U,
club.
Chelsea. Mm.
Yeah, but now it just looks on the outside that they've got a club feel. There's stability within the squad and the manager, and I think ability wise, that some of the players that were in the squad 10, 15 years ago were like legends of the game. And now there's the top players in the squad now, but they're all fighting for each other, and it just looks a good camaraderie amongst the squad.
What was it like with being an England player then? Did you not really like it? Or did you really like it? Because I've heard a few things from your day and stuff like that, and I feel like a lot of people said that kind of they felt like they didn't really want to be there. The media obviously mentioned, but with playing for England then, it was kind of like really like a bad thing. With now, it seems like it's a really positive thing. They already get on. So, do you think for you, for your personal experience, how was that for you?
No, I loved it. I mean, from the first phone call I got um, to the very last, where I think I went on a end the season trip to Ireland that I knew I wasn't going to play. My wedding was the day after the Ireland game, but no, it's something you just do. I think if when I look back at my career when I retire, the thing that I'm going to be most proud about is going to be those 13 caps for England. So no, I was proud to get called up every time. I loved going. I learned lots and lots. I probably didn't play my best football for England, but no, it's something I love doing and really proud of.
Yeah, let's head to your time at Man United again. So you played under obviously Ferguson, and how really was that? I think that's kind of the question that I've always wanted to know. Like, how was that playing under him?
Yeah, I think you talked about it before that you had a sort of a nervous edge and an intensity. One of the managers' big words that just stuck in your mind, especially as a young player, was concentration. He knew everyone had the ability to be there and be in a top team, but the one it was the focus that he just wanted 100%. You tuned in every training session, every game, and yeah, these were morals that have stuck with me throughout my whole career. I can't. The manager obviously had a massive impact. I can't, like I said before, the senior players had a huge impact
Yeah.
um, on me, and I was there was an element of luck that I was in the right time at the right place, coming through an academy like that. I hit the ground running when I got in the first team, and yeah, lucky enough to win a title there and a couple of community shields, and didn't make any cup finals with United, which was a bit disappointing in the 3 years, but uh, another thing that I'm proud about doing.
When did you know that it was time to leave it at Man United and leave?
Yeah, I'll never forget the conversation. Louis Van Gaal called me in his office. He said, I think it was the week where they signed Blind. He said, we're signing Schneiderlin. I think Schweinsteiger was in the pipeline, and he said, there's just not going to be any game time for you. There's going to be very limited game time for you. So I respected that. Someone tells you black and white, this is how it is. It gives you time to then find things elsewhere, and yeah, that I knew that was it from that conversation. So I think it was within a week I then went to Aston Villa on loan.
Yeah, and I heard a story about that again with Roy Keane because apparently he called you and went absolutely nuts to you because he thought that you were going to go to Everton, and then he called you, and then he said, "What are you doing? You need to come to Villa." So then you came to Villa the next day. Can you talk to me about it and just really tell me if that's false or is that true?
Yeah, I've seen the interview, and it's pretty much exactly how he tells it. I went to Roy's house that week. He was the assistant manager at Aston Villa, and then yeah, just as deadline day was coming up, I'd obviously worked under Roberto Martinez at Everton before, and at Wigan before, and he contacted me saying, let's try and get this deal done on a permanent basis. So I was that's where I wanted to go at the time, and yeah, sort of did a U-turn, which I'm not proud about. Aston Villa's a fantastic club, and yeah, on deadline day, United weren't prepared to do any business with Everton, so I got a barrage of abuse from Roy, and with about half an hour to go, I ended up signing a deal to go to Aston Villa on loan, and saw him the next morning, or a couple of days later, because he was on international duty with Ireland.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it is exactly how he said it went.
How's he like to work under? And like I hear a lot of stories about him, and he's very obviously tough and very kind of, he says it how he wants to say it. And a lot of people have kind of controversial views on him, and this is how he says it is wrong or stuff like that. And I just want to know what your kind of experience was with working under him.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer those sort of older school methods, to be honest. And I've as my career goes on, and I've got that view stronger and stronger. So I like the way he worked. It was Paul Lambert was manager at the time, and I think maybe Roy found that a little bit difficult that he wasn't the main man in the driving seat. But listen, he's someone I respected highly. He was a club legend at Man United, and as a midfielder, you can't not learn from his game. But yeah, he's sort of, his input was limited at Villa because he wasn't the manager.
Yeah. And you mentioned a lot of times that you work under managers really the best, where they say to you how it is, and they're strong and kind of old school, if you like. But I think that's kind of the impression that I think I'm getting, and I think that's really with me too. I think I like those type of people that are just really straight to the point with things. What managers have you worked under that you just want to name now, and you just see, top really managers for you that you worked under?
Marco Silva jumps out as the best for me. Thought he was brilliant when he came to Watford. I was really disappointed when he left. I thought he's a manager that could have developed my game and developed Watford as a club if they'd have given him the time. And there's no surprises. I mean, he went to Everton, and Everton's notoriously a club where managers have struggled since Moyes, really. Moyes has had a great season. But yeah, there's no surprises to see that he's transformed this Fulham team. And I think I'd be very surprised in the next 10 years if he wasn't the manager of one of our top clubs.
Yeah, because with with Everton, you obviously spent some time there, and you obviously worked under Ronald Koeman and stuff like that. And I just want to know what your thoughts are in terms of why they've changed maybe so many times in terms of the managers that they've had, in terms of your experience there. I know it's quite hard for you to answer that, but I just want to know, because you're there, how would you see it? Do you think they kind of deserved more time there, or is there other things there that hold them back a bit?
It's difficult to put a finger on why Everton have underachieved for a few years now. And even managers have, even Ancelotti didn't set the world on fire at Everton, and he's gone on to do great things at Real. So difficult club. I think the expectation always outweighs reality a lot of the time. The fans have massive high expectation. It doesn't help when your next door neighbours doing so well. That adds pressure, and yeah, I felt a lot of pressure playing for Everton actually, and I don't know if that was pressure I put on myself or pressure from the fans or the coach, but yeah, it wasn't an easy time as an Everton player, and it does strike me like a lot of players have suffered from that, just to reach the full potential as an Everton player. And yeah, it looks as though they're going to be in another relegation battle this year.
Because I see it and I look at it, and I always thought that too. I think it looks quite a hard place to play. It looks like very kind of toxic a lot of times. Even you saw versus the other night when they played with Bournemouth and kind of their fans at the end, just throwing a lot of things at them, going nuts. And one of the players threw their shot to the fans and they threw it back to them. And it just seems like it's quite a hard place to play. But obviously, you spend a lot of time there, and then you obviously went to to Watford. And how's your time with Watford been for you?
Yeah. Have you got me?
Yeah, yeah, have you?
Oh, sorry, mate. I was just getting a call and it cut off.
Don't worry, don't worry. How's your time at Watford headed for you along? Been for you?
Uh, I've loved it here. I mean, it feels like my club. I think I've spent close to 6 years here now, and then one on loan when I was younger.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's the last 3 years. It's been sad because the club's slowly declined. But from the club that I was on loan at in 2009, 2010 to the club that I came back to in 2017, it was great to see how many strides forward they'd made. The
yeah,
investment into the stadium, the playing squad. Uh, so yeah, I feel personally responsible for the last 2 3 years that we've not been able to establish ourselves as a Premier League club like they did between I think
15.
2015,
Sounds like
2019, yeah. So yeah, it's our like I said, it's our goal for this season to get back there. But then the work's not done. Then I feel like we really need to establish ourselves again, and that's not easy. It's really tough to do that. But I feel like we can learn from a lot of mistakes we made the last time we came up.
yeah, man. How's your manager now? You're playing under. He's obviously very experienced manager. Managed a lot of clubs. So I just want to know what your kind of experience is with him now.
Yeah, well, I can't comment too much on that. I've not even had one training session under him. I've had
Oh yeah,
obviously
haven't you? Yeah,
injury problems in the last 2 months, so I've not actually had a lot of interaction with the new manager apart from captain manager relationships, sort of squad manage like team management stuff, and um, but yeah, personally, he's been fantastic. He always checks in with me, makes sure I'm mentally in a good place, and yeah, I appreciate that, and yeah, I want to get back out there so I can show him what I can do and the value I can bring to the team.
cool. And now just gonna ask you a few quick fire questions now, just to end it off for you. So, what has been your favorite moment um, in football?
Favorite moment in football as and in just one moment, oh, I'd probably say Roy Hodgson telling me I'm starting for England that evening.
Brilliant. Who's the best player that you've played with?
Scholes,
Who's the best player that you've played against?
uh, Modric, De Bruyne, and a bit of a curveball, Fernandinho.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best stadium that you've experienced?
Galatasaray away.
Yeah, that's interesting. That. What's your pre-match meal?
Um, Probably salmon mash. I'm not a superstitious one, so salmon mash and beans. I'd probably go something like that.
That's nice. Who
Or
will win the World Cup?
sorry, mate. Go on.
Who will win the World Cup?
Brazil or Portugal?
Oh. When our team England, do you not fancy us yet?
Heart, heart says and head says Brazil or Portugal.
That's the same with me, but it's the hope. But then if it's going to really head about it, I'm not sure. Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi?
Messi.
Messi. What's the best advice that you've been passed?
Wow, that's a good question. Um, it's I remember I could probably give 4 or 5. I remember Gary Neville speaking to the young players at United, saying, "Have faith in hard work," and yeah, he's right. I mean, you can sort of when you work as hard as possible and you don't get the results, you can sort of lose track from that. But have faith in hard work. That it's gives you the best chance of getting everything you can out of your career.
And is this the final one? Now, describe yourself in 3 words.
Uh, Honest, hard working,
Yeah,
and that's probably maybe not my whole career, but now I'd say an example.
yeah, because I think the hard working one, because you mentioned it a lot, and I just think you mentioned that you come from a working class, but obviously background, and I think, do you think that's where you've kind of learned that hard work thing
Yeah.
from an age?
Plus, I think you for players like me, for flair players, it might not be that might not be how they work. So I'm speaking from personal experience, but from a young age, I realised I'm 5'9". I'm not quick. I'm not quick. I'm quite sharp around my feet and stuff, but I'm not quick. And in modern day football, that's not going to cut it unless you're willing to work really hard and get the best out yourself every day and every game. So
Yeah,
I think what's if I look back at my career, then there's not. I'd say I couldn't really have achieved any more than I have.
yeah. Well, I think you're right, Tim. I think that hard work thing, I think that's what I think we really talked about throughout this interview. And I think it's just really interesting points that you mentioned. And we're just going to end off there. And I just want to I just really appreciate you for doing this again for the viewers out there. I am hugely doing this for obviously because of my stamina, and I'm really keen to show people my age and show people around the world that you should not let things hold you back. And I feel like, whatever you want to do in life, you just have to go after it again with what we mentioned, with hard work, with patience, and with a process and a plan. You can reach your targets. And that's really the key message for me. So I really want to thank Tom, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Cheers, guys. Thank you.